Hey, and now's the time of the show. Excuse me, everybody, please. Now's the time of the show where we really want to focus on 9/11. It happened 11 years ago. We want to talk to people. We just have people talk from the heart, and we actually have someone who was there in the building, and Steve Beccaro, I'm going to let you take over, and let's continue our coverage on 9/11.
Thank you, Howie. This is a very difficult day for a lot of people. It's 11 years since the tragic event. Next to me, I have Janice Brown, who was actually in the South Tower on the 68th floor that day, and I have a police officer that worked that day and the days ensuing that tragic event. I just want to start off by saying, Helen Keller wrote one time, "The world is full of suffering, and is also full of overcoming of it too." So that's something we need to kind of be inspired each and every day, to continue to talk about to our youth what 9/11 meant to everybody. But Janice, you were working in the building, you're a computer analyst, and you worked in the building for 12 years. Just take us through the day's event, how that affected you and what transpired that day.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I got to work early that morning, and I heard the first plane coming in. It crashed into the North Tower, and I was in the South Tower, 68th floor. And I heard it coming in, I heard it crash, and I assumed that it crashed on the ground, so a couple of the coworkers looked around and were near the windows, where the truck was hit on the ground. Finally, we saw the crash up above, because we started seeing papers going down, so I was looking for the source of the papers, and then we saw that the crash was in the town. And then at some point I felt that we were in danger, and I told people that we should evacuate, and they were wondering why, and so I told them, well, last time there was the bomb, we had a dangerous smoke condition in the stairwells, even though the bomb was not in the building. And so I thought we should evacuate. And then another manager came over and said the same thing, told us to evacuate. So we started to evacuate. And I and friend Fred, we were fire wardens on the floor, so we yelled at people to get out. So we walked down the stairs, and it was really very amazing, because people were very kind. And that's all I can say to start with.
So when you found out what was happening, I guess you saw a lot of firefighters, there was a lot of commotion, and people were exiting the building. What was going through your mind? I know that you worked there, so how did that affect you, and what was your goal? Was your goal to simply get out? Was your goal to help others? Did you see other people suffering? Take us a little bit through that. It's painful because you were there and you lost coworkers. But just take us a little bit so the people, the listeners out there, can get an understanding of what you went through that day.
Well, we lost 13 people from our company. None of them were on my floor, so everyone on my floor got out of the building okay. And at that point, I really was very hopeful. I always hope for the best, and so I wasn't really afraid. As I was going down the stairs, I can say is that I saw people helping each other, and it was very touching. I didn't see any firemen might have come up different stairwells. I didn't see them coming up. I heard all the sirens and everything. But we just worked our way down. The plane had not hit our building yet. When I got down, I was on 68. When I got down to 44th floor, the plane hit our building, and it was quite a ways up. But there was a blast of air that came through the elevator shafts that affected our floor. People fell and was seriously injured at that point on that floor. But then we continued down, and at first people were undecided as to whether or not they wanted to continue down, because somebody had just told us that we could go back to our offices. And some people believed it and they got on the elevators. But other people didn't really believe it, and then I think some people were talking to the security guard who had told us that we could go back to our offices, and then he came back and he said, well, if you're more comfortable, you can go down, turn it down and leave the building, if you're more comfortable with that. And so then, most of us decided we wanted to go down, and at that point, the second plane crashed, and we had this blast of air, and then we pretty much knew that we wanted to get out of there. So we continued down, and I just basically concentrated on getting out. And there was one person who did seem to be having anxiety problems, and she was breathing very heavy. I tapped her on the shoulder, and had to get her attention. And she jerked, and I think she got out of whatever thing she was in, and she was breathing okay after that. So she continued down, but people kept on coming to the stairwell. So you see different people along the way. But people continued to be very helpful. I saw the people helping to get it down. And one of the persons who helped us get out of the building was the traffic cop, basically here at the city police department. Policeman who kept on reminding us to keep moving.
Thank you, Janice. I know you're a very spiritual person, so I know your faith has gotten you through this. Jay, you're a police officer for New York City for about 22 years now. And after that event, what were some of the work and the details that you had to do as a police officer for New York City?
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Janice on her efforts to reduce the amount of people that were lost. She's not realizing that her leadership qualities kicked in the minute this happened. And I'm grateful to her because it could have been worse. It could have been many more people lost that day. And these small acts of kindness is what continues to keep us together. And as a police officer, 22 years, I could tell you today, many years later today, and I will always feel the pain of our loss because we all lost that day. The people that died were from dishwashers to executives. They all had families and they all left a legacy. And I just, I want to say that I appreciate Howie for bringing us together and helping us remember the victims. And it's going to get better. Every day we get stronger, and our freedom will not be taken by these terrorists.
Jay, Janice, thank you for your efforts, and thank you, Howie, for allowing this to happen. We look forward to hear the youth of Long Beach speak up after the break.
All right, before we go to break, I just want to reflect myself. I really didn't know too many people that got killed in the tower, but I happen to know one young man, and I never forgot him. People always ask me, how did you get the name Halftime Howie? And I got the name because I did a high school sports show for many years before I came to Long Beach. And I forget one show I did. At one time I was doing a radio show and a cable TV show. And I was doing a cable TV show, and I remember reading about this story about Great Neck North football team. And here's the story. They were 0-7, and it was the last game of the year. And they were down 21-0 at halftime. And led by this great running back named Andy Sturgiopoulos, he scored 4 touchdowns in the second half. And he led Great Neck North to this victory. And I asked him, I said, Andy, you're 0-7, you're down 21-0 at the half. How did you rally your team? He said, this is the last time I was ever going to put on the uniform. I refused to leave that field a loser. And he went out and he scored 4 touchdowns, and he refused to let his teammates lose. And his coach, Mark Green, said to me, Andy was one of the great leaders that I ever coached. And years later, I found out that Andrew Sturgiopoulos was working on one of the highest floors, and at 22 years of age, he lost his life. And I said, this was a guy that had so much left to give, such a great leader that made such a great impact on so many people, and I'll never forget Andrew Sturgiopoulos from Great Neck, and the life cut short, but he made a great impact with many people he touched in a short life, like did so many thousands of others that tragically lost their life on that day. All right, we're going to take a break, and after the break, we're going to hear from the Long Beach students, what 9/11 means to them, plus our very own Rocco Pasafumi and Mayor Minch, what 9/11 means to them, plus a movie review. So keep it locked right here on 1240 AM. I am Halftime Howie. This is Broadcasting on the Beach with Halftime Howie coming to you live from the Avenue Cafe on Long Island's first and oldest radio station, 1240 AM, WG.